going for the Prime Minister role?
I'm going for my bike, thank you.
So I am today announcing that I will resign as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party.
Hasn't it moved quickly?
It's not someone spilling a milkshake.
It will escalate quickly.
It was banana and salted caramel.
This is the What and the Why podcast, strawberry flavoured edition, for the week ending the 24th of May, 2019.
But will United Kingdom change the results? Let's see.
Welcome to podcast 30, or as we say in bingo, Dirty Gertie Blind 30. This week,
Press the transmit button and say slowly and clearly, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday.
yep, Mayday for May in May, which in turn means the Conservative Party may have to go gathering nuts in May as they choose a new leader and thus Prime Minister. Also this week,
When you move in right up close to me, that's when I get the shakes all over me.
shaking all over as Nigel Farage gets milkshaked all over him. Shaken but not stirred, 1,000 lactose-related jokes are launched. Some may even be slightly amusing, but is throwing things at people funny? So it's the What and the Why podcast, and this may be
David Waywell.
Dr. David Waywell. How are you?
I'm okay. I've just finished crying over May's speech. It was so moving.
Are you being ironic?
I am being ironic, yeah. Yeah. We'll talk about it.
Okay, but first there's a question.
Okay, there always is.
Yeah. My question is, how come there's only one word for thesaurus?
There's more than one word for thesaurus. I'm sure there is. Concordance and word list.
Well, that's ruined my question. Okay.
I'm guessing.
I don't even know what does concordance mean.
A concordance is a list of words, but it shows you the context in which the words are often used.
Oh, right.
So it's really useful when you study in English, because you can look up a word, say happiness, and you can see the context in which the writer always used the words happiness, and you sometimes spot a theme develop. Or it's a way to see words in context, I think.
On that very subject, any good books?
No, I've not been reading this week. I've not had chance to read.
Okay.
I've not had chance to read this week.
Well, in that case, let's move straight on to item one. Mrs.
Well, I was supposed to ask you. No, I was supposed to ask you what you've been reading. Are you still reading the volcano book?
I admit to skim reading it. Tambora and the Year Without Summer, about the volcanic explosion of 1815. I skim read it through to the end. I did find that poem you mentioned, which I may have to read out a wee bit of it in last week's podcast this week. But on to the news. Mrs. May, yeah, she said, okay, that's it. Interesting date. She's off on June the 7th. Yeah. We should know a new Tory party leader presently. And then, they become...
I think it's happening. Is it happening after she's left, though? It's like the leadership's going to be run the week after.
I don't actually know. But that would be my instinct, because otherwise you've got a sort of prime minister that isn't a prime minister. I wish I did know that. You've asked me a question I wish I knew, and I want to go and Google it right now, but of course, because this is going to be out of date. Can you just forget you asked me that?
Okay.
Thank you. Well,
but it was an interesting speech, because I still don't know who she is. I mean, it reminded me of the speech she gave when she came into number 10. She was talking about moderation and compassion. I mean, not specifically compassionate conservatism, but it was effectively compassionate conservatism.
Yeah.
And immediately, as she's leaving, she's talking about, she believes in moderation and compassionate conservatives and all, and ruling for everybody, and she loves the union and all this. Yet the bit in between didn't seem to have any connection to those things, because I still don't know who she is. I don't know whether she's the Maybot, who is just this extremely determined person to see through her obligations, or if she's a clever politician who's been holding together a party which is fracturing at every seam. So, I mean, the seams fracture, but breaking at every seam, breaking apart. So,
yeah, she was just completely dominated by Brexit. I mean, this thing about healing, broken Britain and trying to reach out to impoverished communities, it just never got off the starting blocks.
Yeah, I thought that myself, because when she was listing her accomplishments, I was actually thinking, this is a pretty bad little set of accomplishments. It shows you that she's just been dominated by Brexit, because there's not that much you can remember from a time in office. I mean, she appointed some pretty hardliners. She had Esther McVeigh back in social services. I mean, she wasn't really the compassionate Tory I was expecting when she came in.
Okay, so now we're going to have a replacement. Who's your money on?
Boris, I think. I mean, I was thinking this morning that in a way, I mean, I'm sad to see her go, because I think I don't think she's been particularly great, but I think she was handed an impossible task, and she's tried her hardest. And I think because she was a Remainer, I think it's made her even more zealous to do it. And I think she's become overzealous. I think in a way she started to become a little bit wide-eyed and staring into the distance. Sort of, she was obsessed with delivering Brexit. But I think compared to what's coming, I don't think there's such good candidates, lining up.
Okay.
Boris,
Speaking of the candidates, I while I was pretending to listen to you for the past couple of minutes, I was actually Googling.
I could hear you typing. That's why I kept talking. I thought,
fella!
I'll let you do your homework.
We should do live broadcasting. According to an article I've just read, she steps down on the 7th, and the leadership contest begins the following week. And on those dates, it's pretty obvious she wants to be in place when Trump comes over. So she's the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And secondly, of course, it's the D-Day commemorations. So she'll be in place for that. And then the following week, what is the 7th? It's a Friday. The following week, they begin knocking lumps out of each other. And again, just in case anyone doesn't know, there's going to be up to 18 candidates. So there could be as many as 18 rounds of voting, because all the Tory MPs vote. The person who comes last, you're out. Next round of voting, the person who comes last, you're out. Until you whittle it down to 2, they are the 2 that go through to put it to the Tory membership out in the country, which is why if Boris has survived all those rounds, at that point, almost certainly, he'll win.
That's a big if, though. That's a big if, because apparently he's not particularly well liked inside the party, and he has a reputation of being quite lazy, and I mean, we face this strange situation in this country where we seem to be a little bit obsessed with people's accents. We've got it currently with the Rees Mogg book. He's written a book about the Victorians, and everybody assumed it was going to be a great tomb about
it's been smashed, hasn't it?
It's been smashed, and in a way, Boris is the same one. It's the old saying about a daft person's idea of what an intelligent person looks like. I'm not sure Boris is as advertised, but the grassroots love him.
Yes. Dominic Raab. Just let me go down to the betting. Boris Johnson at the moment 3-1. Dominic Raab 5-1. Second favourite. Does anyone know who he is?
I was about to say, when I start imagining him, I just see a blank picture frame on my wall. I can't imagine what he looks like. I'll tell you anything about. I know what he looks like, but he's just bland, isn't it?
I think so, and he's a Brexiteer, as of course Boris. Well, depending on what day it is or what year it is, Boris is also a Brexiteer.
Leadsom. I mean, Leadsom is the one who, in the last election, it came down to Mayo Leadsom, and don't even get me started on Leadsom. But
16-1. I don't think she's got enough support.
I hope they've seen enough. Of her now that she wouldn't get the support that she got last time.
She's also a Brexiteer, though. I mean, it's possible that they may need to put in a Brexiteer. Fourth favourite, Michael Gove at 8-1.
I think he's the candidate who he's playing his cards close to his chest, so maybe I think he's a good chance.
Agreed. Jeremy Hunt, 10-1.
No. You just keep after showing that picture of him ringing that bell and the end fell off. Do you know? Was it the clapper fell out?
Yes, the bell end fell off, as everybody said. This is a family podcast, so I mean that literally.
And he's also the famous mispronunciation. So no, I just don't think so.
Yeah, well, he's another one that has turned into a Brexit supporter. I remember there's Leadsom. You can look up Andrea Leadsom just 4 years ago, saying it would be an absolute disaster if the UK was to leave the EU. I'm completely against it, and of course now she's an arch Brexiteer. I wouldn't say Hunt is an arch Brexiteer, but he has come round to thinking, we need to go. I want to go.
I'd be surprised if they went for anybody who was a Remainer in any sense. I think it would be a proper Brexiteer.
Matthew Hancock, a man that I think no one's ever heard of, 16-1.
Well, you can get his app. He's got his own app, hasn't he, on the App Store or something? That's the only thing I know about him.
Rory Stewart, 16-1. I think the last two we've just mentioned, they're only saying they're maybe leadership candidates in order to be taken seriously by some people, and then whoever gets the leader, they get a cabinet position because they're very important.
It's very much like the American election. They've got however 30 candidates, whatever, but a lot of it is just to raise the profile in the state or in the country.
Jacobs Rees-Mogg, 33-1. He said he's not even standing. Amber Rudd, 33-1.
He'd want it. He'd take it. But yeah.
Amber Rudd at 33-1, but I think
that's shocking.
Well, I think there's some of that is the fact that she's got a majority of about half a person. I was
going to say, and she is very Remain.
Yeah, at any moment, in any election, she actually could very, very easily lose her seat, and that doesn't work. And you're also Remain, Yeah,
apparently Boris has been courting her supporters, and he's trying to sort of present himself as the centrist candidate, but.
Yeah, what day is it?
Exactly. Yeah.
James Cleverly, 33-1. Penny Mordaunt, I wouldn't rule her out. 20-1. New Defence Secretary.
Yeah. What about Esther McVeigh? Where's she?
Oh, she's not anywhere.
Oh, thank God for that.
Yeah. But she's got a chance. Yeah. Oh, actually, no. She's missing from my list of betting, but she said she's going to run. Matthew Hancock, 16-1. Rory Stewart, 16-1. Sajid Javid, 16-1, which also surprises me that he's that far
I hope you're doing all these things on your shoulders and tapping your nose as you're reading these out. Like John McCriwick.
And my last one for you, Priti Patel, 33-1.
Oh.
Yeah. I know. Well, look, but they're not going to get it. I mean, it is going to come.
I'm not going there. I don't want to get letters
to Boris.
I don't think the Tory party is going to do itself any favours if they put somebody like Priti Patel or any of the real hardline people who've been associated with social security cuts and saying some of the things. Pro hanging, pro corporal punishment. Yeah. No, I think that they need to go for. Boris, for all his sins, is more what you imagine as a Tory leader, potential Tory leader.
Does it make any difference? We're still going to be in the same. The maths are still the same. The deal is still the same. But I suppose they have to do something to break the impasse, don't they?
I think it does matter because I was thinking of this this morning. Do you not think that Boris is one of the few people who might be able to solve it? Because I'm thinking about it in terms of, for the moment, the second referendum, and nobody wants to talk about the second referendum because they don't want to be perceived as a Remainer. And I think that was partly Theresa May's problem. But the second referendum, as David Mellor of all people said on the news, was it this morning? He was saying it's the obvious solution. If a Brexiteer proposed it, and I'm thinking Boris may be the person who could propose it, it does give him an escape route. I just don't think no deal is. I think no deal plunges us into even deeper waters.
Yes, you're supposed to make pithy comments and meaningful projections. I just think it is all so murky, swirling around in the laps of the gods. I just don't see. I can't make a reasonable prediction on where it goes. I can make a different reasonable projection about the European elections. Pretty obviously, it looks like Brexit Party will absolutely be the number one party in the UK for this election. The far right is going to grow throughout Europe. It'll change the makeup of the European Parliament, which will make things a little sticky in the European Parliament as far as decision making is going to go. And so the trajectory in the EU countries will continue to be a growth of people hostile to the EU, but that still doesn't mean that the nation states are going to say to Boris or whoever it is, yeah, you know what, we will give you a good deal after all. It's not going to happen.
I'm a bit cautious about these. I think it's very hard to tell what the hell, because people are saying that a low turnout's going to help the extremists, but I still think that the referendum was basically swayed by that percentage of people who don't normally vote, and certainly I don't think they'll be voting in the European elections. I do think, and I feel maybe it's just a false perception because you look at your Twitter feed and your Twitter feed reflects your character. I still feel like Remainers are the ones who are motivated this time, so I wouldn't be surprised if Brexit might be a little bit overinflated in the book is, and Remainers a little bit under, but. Wait till Sunday, don't we?
No, Sunday night, because the nearly all the other 27 EU members vote on Sunday. We should get them by about 10:15 Sunday evening. Certainly, we'll know the UK results.
So they are already going to be counted then?
Yes, the UK results will come out just about immediately, and then you'll get this deluge of votes from around the continent on the between sort of 10 and midnight, really. All right, shall we do milkshakes?
I'll try to disagree with you on this.
Okay. You know my position. I don't care if Farage is a despicable character or if he's an angel. It is not a good thing in political life, in fact, outside of political life, to throw food over people, to throw food over complete strangers, to walk up to someone you've never met in your life and just throw a milk-related product over them. I don't care who they are. It's wrong.
No, I agree with you.
Well, that's not bloody good, is it?
No. Well, let me explain. I had this conversation. I mean, I noticed you were having this conversation on Twitter with a few people, and they were kind of coming back at you, disagreeing with you. And I'd had exactly the same conversation earlier in the day after it. I tweeted that this is just going to lend him sympathy. It's a terrible thing to do because you're not supporting your car. All the arguments I have traditionally always had about this kind of protest. And I had people coming back with, although I didn't necessarily agree with them. When I actually started to think about it, they weren't wrong either. There is a long tradition of this. We've been doing this in politics since. I mean, I think it's.
Well, it doesn't make it right.
It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right. So in the end, I actually wrote a piece for Reaction earlier this week, and what I came down to was, I'm just glad that we've got the law to sort it out, because on both sides there's a tendency, and I'm not saying you're doing it, but I know I certainly began to do it, where you start to say, well, this is violence, this is moving towards Joe, the terrible situation with Joe Cox, and then on the other side, people saying yes, but it's just a form of protest that we've been doing for years, and it's not illegal, it's vandalism.
It is illegal. It's common assault.
No.
Theoretically.
No, it's not common assault. It's vandalism rather than a common assault. It can sway into common assault, I believe, in certain circumstances.
No, it is common assault. That is what people are being charged with.
Have they always been charged with it? The point is. Well, my argument is, and this is where I agree with you, but I also don't disagree with those other people. Is in the sense of, I'm just thankful that we have the law to decide what this is and punish the people according to the law, because I think these things get polarized and pulled apart, and people try to justify it as one thing, pulled apart and justified as something else, and then we end up in the ridiculous situation we have this morning, which is there was an old paratrooper who was standing outside a polling station supporting the Brexit party, and somebody's thrown a milkshake over him, which is terrible, and it's a horrible thing to see. But other people saying, well, maybe this is dirty tricks on behalf of the Brexit lot because we haven't got evidence of this. I just don't like the way it's being politicised. I don't like having the arguments. I just think it's a ridiculous situation. Just let the law sort it out. I don't want to start making it.
Well, I'd agree with that, but I'd start with the thing of don't do it. Then the law doesn't need to sort it out. My fundamental argument, as you know, was if you argue it's okay to chuck milk products over people you don't agree with, does it not follow that it's okay for people to chuck milkshakes over you if they don't agree with you? And then back comes this argument, well, no, we're only chucking things over right-wing, nasty right-wingers, and that's okay because they're not very nice. But it wouldn't be okay to chuck things at left-wing people because they are nice, which is a...
I know, and then somebody started to do it to Was it Femi?
Femi, yeah, Femi Olowale. Yeah, I mean, well, more than that, they chucked some water over him, and then, but of all people, allegedly, a King's College professor, a university professor,
lecturer,
who was in mental health lecturer, allegedly, shakes the hand of the man who threw water over Femi, and then sort of waves his Union Jack flagpole. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he actually poked him in the face, but he sort of poked it towards his face. It was pathetic.
I totally agree with you. I mean, my initial position was that I was arguing exactly what you were arguing, and whilst I don't necessarily, I've not gone over to the other side and started saying, well, it is a fair right of protest. I just say, I don't want to inflate it any more than it already is. It's a ridiculous thing. Let the police sort it out. We've got more important things to talk about.
But it's becoming a thing, and unless
and I think the danger is by talking about it, by people laughing at it, or being or being outraged by it, we turn it into something other than what it always has been, which is just a ridiculous feature of our political system. Because I mean, I was reading, I've been reading this Churchill biography. Things have been a hell of a lot worse than we have now. Churchill was whipped by a bloke. I think it was a bloke or a woman. One of the suffragette, protesters in 1909.
I think it was definitely a bloke or a woman.
We've had, it can go very violent, and I'm not saying, oh, thank God, it's only milkshakes or eggs or whatever. I just feel like at the moment the subject itself is being politicised by both sides.
That's because it's a political act. I mean, and I disagree with you about not talking about it because because you will leave the field open there for people who just think it's funny. Consequently, more and more of it happens. Once it starts happening, you'll see both sides doing it. That. I mean, I know that people hate the slippery slope argument, but already social media is full of people saying things like, "Oh, shame it wasn't acid, this, that, and the other." I mean, this is just pathetic.
It's that slippery slope argument on both sides, which I'm trying to take the position of. Just let the law decide how bad it is, because if we start to say it's like this or it's like that, it either becomes, oh, it's just a form of fun, oh, it's just like a prank you do at university or at school, and on the other side it's like, well, no, this is actually, this is like attacking somebody, this is like political violence. I'm just my argument. It is what it is. It's just a stupid thing which we just want to get rid of. It's not helping either side. Let's just focus on the arguments. And it just the point I'm just making is, I feel like we're talking about that, and that is taking on some of the characteristics of the larger Brexit debate. If you're pro-Brexit. At the moment, if you're pro-Brexit, it's terrible. It's a terrible crime that's being committed. And if you're pro-Remain, it's just a bit of a laugh. It's neither of those things. It's, as the law dictates, vandalism or common assault. I'm happy with it. Yeah.
It also gets my goat because the people doing it on both sides, the fella chucking water at Femi and the fella chucking the milkshake at Farage, I find them sanctimonious, pious, self-righteous. I was going to swear, who do you think you are, walking up to somebody you've never met and just chucking stuff at them?
I totally agree with you. But let me point to an example this week. There's a video been going around where some female reporter from America has been walking around Manchester, and they were asking people what they thought about
Tommy Robinson.
Tommy
and
Robinson.
They all said he's a C word over and over again.
It's a C word, right? And everybody was laughing.
Have you heard anything about Tommy Robinson running for MEP in the region?
Yeah, he's
And why is that?
You know why, but you won't be asking.
That's why I'm asking. Can you give me... Why do you think that?
He's racist, he's Islamophobic, and he's a
That wasn't the point of that video. The second bloke they interviewed, I don't know if you remember, she talked to a young woman with a tiara on as she was having a laugh. So the second bloke comes on, and he said, oh yeah, he's a C word. And she said, but do you don't think it's legitimate to criticise Islam? And the bloke said, Islam must, and this is just a normal white bloke, Manchester, Islam must not be criticised in any respect. You should not talk about it at all.
He deserves to have a milkshake thrown over him. He's just offensively offensive. I'll be honest, he's just odd. It just boils my bubbles.
And so, in your opinion, do you think it's somewhat racist to criticize Islam the way he does?
I think it's racist to criticise Islam, full stop. I mean, it's just wrong.
That was the point of the video, because it was a far right video which was circulated. Yeah, it was being circulated by the left as though, this is great. No, it was actually the point that video I think was making was saying this is about free speech. This is everybody's laughing at the Tommy Robinson bit, but actually the bit that irked me as an atheist who likes to talk about all forms of religion and ideas and science and everything I want to talk about was about free speech. And all I'm saying is, I think this milkshake story, egging story, it's becoming something else, and it worries me how it's been politicised and manufactured into a larger story. I mean, the paratrooper I'm talking about now, his £14,000 has been raised for him, and people are wondering where the £14,000 has come from, because that's another big story at the moment, where all political money is coming from. So the whole thing is getting wrapped in, and it's the old line about, was it Kennedy, enigma wrapped in a riddle.
No, that was Churchill on Russia.
Oh, yeah, that was it. Yeah. I'm thinking of Joe Pesci in the JFK.
Oh, well, I'm coming back to Joe Pesci later on.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yes. Leaving this one, I'll leave you with what the definition of common assault. An offence of common assault, which is the least of all the, there's ABH, GBH, there's one even below that, and then the bottom, common assault, is committed when a person either assaults another person or commits a battery. An assault is committed when a person intentionally or recklessly causes another to apprehend the immediate infliction of unlawful force. So in other words, if some bloke comes up to you in an aggressive manner and draws his fist back, that's common assault, even if he doesn't actually hit you.
Okay. I mean, I'd read up something where they were talking about it. It was closer to vandalism, but I accept. I mean, whatever the law did say.
The fellow who shook up Farage was charged with common assault, and that's what
was he done for common assault?
The case will be taken, and it's up to 6 months in prison, which would be a little harsh, perhaps, wouldn't it?
Oh, well, somebody was pointing out that the person who threw an egg at Corbyn, did he get 28 days?
He did. When he cracked the egg over Corbyn's head, so therefore, of course, he physically placed a hand upon him in a what could be construed violent manner. I don't know if that was common assault or not.
Let me just make one final point, and I'm not making a point because I'm trying to disagree with what you've just said. Also, take into context what's been happening across the north. These, especially the Tommy Robinson's lot, have been going into places. They went into Liverpool recently. Described one of the supporters, that James Goddard, described it as a, with a lower the tone, a shithole, and the locals got very angry. They went into Oldham and nearly caused a race riot. I mean, the locals were
they did. This is dangerous stuff. They went to an overwhelmingly white Hang on, sorry, David. They went to an overwhelmingly white working class estate, and they were opposed. And it is legitimate to oppose political parties that you don't agree with, but they were opposed by 200 to 300 young Brit Asians who travelled 2 or 3 miles across town to go to that estate, and together they clashed. I don't think. Yes, it was their presence that triggered. It was Robinson and his followers who triggered the violence by going there. But did they cause the race riot? Well, it wasn't even a race riot anyway. It wasn't even a race riot. Did they cause the violence by being there?
This is how they're operating. This is what they're about.
Well, they know what's coming.
They know what they're doing. They know they're trying to provoke the other side into violence, and the other side are stupidly satisfying.
But on this occasion, the other side walked about 2 miles across town to get there.
Yeah, but Oldham is Oldham is one of those trigger points in the northwest. Tommy Robinson and his bunch of ex-EDL supporters turning up in Oldham is going to cause that. I mean, yes, you could argue they've got the freedom to do it. Yes, they've got the freedom of speech, but it's provocative, and this is what part of the game plan is. It's about provoking people, and I think this is part of the problem, the larger problem with Milkshake. The things I kind of struggled with, and why I sort of retreated from my position a little bit and left the law to decide about it, because in having the argument that you've just presented and I've just presented about it is provocative, but they've got the right. I don't want to in any way to be seen as legitimising them. And I think that's what some people perceive as criticism of these milkshake attacks is legitimising the far right, especially. I mean, not Farage. I mean, whether he's far right or not, that's a separate issue. I don't think he necessarily is, because he's distancing himself from that. But again, deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole we go. Why has he done that? For political reasons, because he realises he wants to be a party of popular support. So, I just think the whole thing descends into horrible labyrinths of, you know.
Yeah, I had a long conversation with a really lovely fella last night, Irish fella, who'd said that all Brexiteers are far right, and I was quite astonished that he thought that, you know, half of the country therefore is half right, or half people, you know, because 50% voted, and so, you know, we had a long chat about it, and his position was that because Brexit comes from a place of nationalism, therefore it is far right. But, you know, I just think you can have degrees of...
Well, it's the patriotism, nationalism.
Yeah.
People get the two things so very, very confused. And, I mean, the difficulty I have, and I've spoken about it these days today, is whenever I see the Union Jack, I have a sort of slight, you know, hesitation about it. I don't like feeling that way towards the flag of my country. Aldi have got it painted on the wall, and I always feel a little bit uncomfortable seeing it.
Well, that's because it's been hijacked as a symbol by the far right. Yeah,
it's because it's been hijacked as a symbol by the far right. So I understand his position. Everybody who supports Brexit isn't on the far right.
No, I know lots of people who voted Brexit, and they are just ordinary people. They're not far right. But to say it isn't a feature of Brexit supporters. Oh yeah, that's a different thing. But this guy said all people who voted Brexit are far right people, and
this is the Will Self argument. He said not everybody who supports Brexit is a right winger, but all right wingers support Brexit, and I think he's right. It is a feature of the far right, because it does go into areas of nationalism, and I'm happy for it to have a conversation about patriotism and democracy, but nationalism is about, you know, taking things off other people. It becomes, you know, confrontational. It's not just about loving your country. It's loving your country to see the demise of other countries and, you know, the suffering of other countries. It's a totally different thing.
Right. A doctor writes. Does a doctor write anything this week?
Okay. On to lighter topics.
I hope
Eurovision.
So. Yes.
Oh, do you know last week when you said we were talking about the Lib Dems and the new motto, and you said your Methodist upbringing thought it was too much. Bollocks to Brexit.
Yes.
Yeah, I was reading somebody on Twitter this week who said bollocks to the Eurovision. Do you remember that? Forget about the Eurovision bollocks.
Oh no. Yeah, no. Yes, I tweeted out our last podcast by saying, you know, never mind the Eurovision bollocks. No, you're right. Therefore, I'm using this crude phrase, but I'm not.
You're not a political party
making a pitch to the entire electorate.
Yeah, I know. Did you watch it though?
No. Did you?
No, but do you know why Macedonia is now called North Macedonia?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I had to look it up.
Oh, right.
It's Greece, isn't it?
That's right. I'm glad you asked that, David. North Macedonia is known as North Macedonia because it wanted to be called Macedonia. There is a part of northern Greece, a province, which is called Macedonia. So the Greek position was, hang on a minute, if you start calling yourself Macedonia, the next thing you know, you'll be wanting our bit of our country, which is called that, to join up to yours. So we're not going to allow it, and we're going to make sure everyone in the EU agrees, and you're not coming into this organisation or that organisation until you sort it out. And it led to riots, all sorts of things over the past 2 years in Greece and indeed in Macedonia. But they finally came to the conclusion, okay, we'll rename it North Macedonia.
Yeah, Twitter was alive with, but I just thought it was a nice connection with geopolitics and the Eurovision.
Oh well, the whole thing's full of flipping.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah,
politics. I mean, that's probably. I've never heard the Brit song. I mean, it may have been good.
Horrific.
It may have been bad, but
bad.
I suspect it came last more for political reasons than how good or bad it was.
I like the fact that we came last, and then they actually revised the score, and we came even lower. There'd been a flaw in the maths. Anyway, on a similar musical theme, are you a Morrissey fan?
I liked a couple of the Smiths albums. That's about it.
Yeah, it's that same here. Anyway,
that's different to being a Morrissey fan, because he can be a bit of a...
He has gone.
Yeah.
He has gone.
Yeah.
Odd. His posters have been banned from Liverpool's Merseyrail network after a complaint from a member of the public. He's been filmed wearing a For Britain badge. You know, the far right group.
Oh dear. Really?
Yeah. He has, yeah. Well, I think he's got into it. I think he's got into the whole politics of that because of his into animal rights, isn't it? And he's got a real opposition to halal. Is it halal? You know, the way that animals are slaughtered. But anyway, they've banned his poster for his new album California Sun, which The Guardian has gave a 1-star review and described it as having a troll-like spirit. Well, I've not listened to him for years, so it's not that. A quick callback to last week. The UK's Information Commissioner has said that he wants a clear code to be put in place on the use of facial recognition. We were talking about it last week in terms of the trial, and the bloke was arrested. So it does look like maybe that the government's going to start taking more interest in, you know, how it's done. Coca-Cola is bringing back New Coke. Do you remember New Coke from the mid-80s?
Why?
Yeah. Well, it was notoriously horrible to drink. I think it was supposed to be a really, really...
And it bombed.
It bombed it. Was it like 17 days or something? But anyway, the TV show Stranger Things, which is set in 1985, has characters drinking it. So for a limited time, Coca-Cola is bringing out some merchandise.
I haven't tried their raspberry Coke yet, which I'm looking forward to.
I don't drink any of the Cokes.
Oh, you're very wise. They are poison.
Well, yeah, no, Pepsi. I like Pepsi though, which is equally poisonous.
Oh no! This podcast's sponsored by Pepsi, so
by Pepsi,
that sugary drink, which is equally bad for you, is much better.
It's also sponsored by Samsung, because Samsung have revealed a really nice bit of technology. We've been talking about deep learning and deep fakes. You were talking about deep fakes about 5 or 6 podcasts ago. Samsung have got a new variation on it, where what they've managed to do is they've actually managed to use two competing networks to produce a video of famous paintings coming alive. So there's a really great video, I'll link to it in the show notes, of the Mona Lisa looking around and kind of talking. It's really, really impressive, but it just shows you what deep learning can do. Two quick points from last week, because I'll do my own last week's podcast this week. You can abbreviate. It wasn't ABR, as I said, it was ABBR. And we were talking about strange laws. Somebody actually wrote to me and said that there is no minimal legal age for marriage in America, which actually is wrong. But I did discover 17 states in America still haven't a minimum requirement for marriage, legal age to marry. So,
and I bet I can guess where most of them are.
I bet you can't get the biggest.
Tennessee.
No.
Texas.
No.
Mississippi.
Mississippi is one of them.
Okay.
California, Colorado, Idaho, Louisiana, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Mississippi, Nevada, Mexico.
I was wrong. My prejudices were against the Deep South, and in fact I was wrong. Wow.
I thought it was going to be Bible Belt, but no, California is one.
Well, California and Colorado is a very liberal, liberal state.
I think it's just that they've not got around to it. It requires governors and parents and judges to get involved, but there is no actual legally stipulated minimum age to get married. So that's it. On with yours.
No, I've cancelled this week's Things We Lost in the Mire in favour of a missive. Has arrived in our inbox. Nice guy I know called Joe Wallen. He's the Daily Telegraph's New Delhi correspondent, and of course it's been the Indian election. Yes. Modi has smashed it. What he is now is a Hindu nationalist, and it's actually a really big election in so many ways. But also, the trajectory of the strongman is maintained because he's got back in. Anyway, Joe was kind enough to send us this all the way from New Delhi.
So after what has been described as the world's biggest exercise in democracy, with 900 million eligible voters heading to the polls in the Indian general election over a mammoth 6-week period, the incumbent Prime Minister Narendra Modi appears to have triumphed in a landslide. His Hindu Nationalist Alliance, spearheaded by his Bharatiya Janata Party, or the BJP as they're more commonly known, is leading in almost 350 out of the 542 seats. Now, how it works here in India is that a political party just needs 272 seats in the elections to form a majority and in turn elect a Prime Minister. So what we're seeing here is a huge, huge win for Modi. The extent of his victory has shocked both political analysts and journalists after what has been perceived as a string of economic policy failures since he was first elected in 2014, such as demonetisation or failing to deliver on job creation. What appears to have really kind of swung things back in Modi's favour is a policy pivot to embrace Hindu nationalism, so presenting himself as the leader of a Hindu homeland nation at the expense of the many other minorities here. The suicide bombing in Kashmir in February was a godsend for Modi, for example, and as he launched airstrikes on militants across the border in Pakistan, he presented himself from the campaign trail as the only leader who could defend the country's Hindus against both Islamist insurgents and the old enemy, Pakistan. For minorities in India, in particular the country's 122 million Muslims, they now face a very uncertain future. There have been increasing instances of mob attacks and the lynching of Muslims in India over the last few years, with the BJP-controlled judiciary seemingly turning a blind eye. Twitter was awash today with many Muslim political commentators stating very frankly that they had no future in India and that many were already making plans to leave the country, in what seems to be a grim replication of the uncertainty and fear of partition. The election had been dubbed very much as a battle for India's soul. Would the electorate opt for the secular Gandhi and his Congress party, or opt for Modi and pivot to becoming a country that would ignore Modi's previous economic failings for his promises to make India a land where Hindus would feel welcome? Now, given the landslide victory, it appears there's little doubt, and terrifyingly so for many minorities here, which option India has chosen.
What did you make of that?
The thing that strikes me is what you were talking about nationalism. It never occurred to me that this was another part of the global story about nationalism. Like you say, the strong men, but...
Oh yeah, Duterte in the Philippines, Xi in China, China.
When was the last time you heard? When was the last time you heard?
China.
China. I love China. China all the time. I love China. China. So when was the last time you heard? China.
And Modi in India, all part of this wave of it that's going on all around the globe.
I think this is the difficulty. Like we live in a kind of age of doubt, and I think whenever you have doubts about things, strong men always seem to provide easy answers.
Yeah, uncertainty.
Indeed, religion does.
Yeah. Well, and I see. Yes, they go in tandem, don't they? And Modi absolutely has ridden this tiger of Hindu nationalism, which Joe is referring to, and the Muslim community are very concerned, communities I should say, are very concerned because, everyone knows what happened in 1948 and the transfer of populations and the massacres that happened, and as we've seen in Sri Lanka recently, these massacres on ethnic lines, even in modern states, are not unknown. So there's a lot of nerves and a lot of people are very upset and concerned about Modi's re-election. It's not just his re-election, it's the manner in which he campaigned.
What worries me is I don't necessarily see how these things end. I think they have to end by, in a sense, burning themselves out, because I don't necessarily think there's going to be a better solution. It's just going to be a return to the more traditional. I mean, especially in the UK. Hopefully, at some point, we'll realise that the best.
I think those days. I gave a talk last night, and I was making this argument. I think those days are over. I think what we regarded as the sort of post Second World War era has finished, and I think we're in the middle of a real flux in politics, in which Farage and Brexit Party and all the rest of them are swirling around inside it. I don't think we're going back to two-party stability, not here and not elsewhere.
I don't think.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say I don't think two-party stability in the sense of I don't think the Tories or the Labour can currently hold the configurations. I was saying this morning, I don't see how the Tories remain the party of Ken Clarke and the party of Jacob Rees-Mogg. I just can't see how that sustains
Everything
itself.
is in flux.
But I think in a broader sense, I was having a conversation about religion yesterday, as I often find myself having it, and I said,
with God, I hope.
No, I was talking about the fact that I don't think atheists make a good enough case for atheism. I think we've got this thing in our school systems where there's the sciences and then there's the humanities, and the humanities talk about things like being and happiness and all those areas. Science is all about why apples fall off trees and how do you put rockets on the moon. I think atheism, which is grounded in the sciences, has more to say about things like happiness and well-being and family and community and law.
Isn't atheism grounded in philosophy?
It is grounded in philosophy, but it is grounded in a belief in empiricism and science and reason and not.
You can have all those things and still believe.
Of course you can. Yes, you can believe, but I don't necessarily. This gets into deism and whether there's a structure to the universe and whether there's.
Well, there clearly is. Have you looked at it?
No, exactly. There is, but whether that is as presented to us through religion, which is usually a group of people in a powerful position with an ideology which they want to impose on other people, the problem isn't belief. The problem is religion, as it is humanly conceived and contains many of the problems and inherent flaws of being a human. It's linked to power and it's linked to repression and it's linked to ignorance and so I'm not as an atheist I'm not it's not that I'm not interested in belief or truth or any of those things, but I'm not interested in fictions around those.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is the problem with Farage and Modi and all these strongmen is they present a very simple answer to the problems of the world, and the only way is either, unless people do stand up and say that isn't the answer and we've got a better solution, is that eventually they burn themselves out, sometimes violently, sometimes democratically. And I think maybe, especially in the case of Farage, maybe it's one of those things that will burn itself out. I hope it doesn't. Some people say it's like, I'm going to take up arms and all this stuff, if Brexit doesn't go through. I don't think we're a country ready to do that. I don't think the anger's there. I think it's a different type of anger.
I agree on the last point, but on my wider point that I think politics has changed and will not revert back in the UK and on the continent, I think is the case.
So you're suggesting we're going to stay in a sort of cycle of myths and kind of nationalistic talk about, bloody saints, St. George, and, St. George didn't kill the dragon here so he could be ruled for your, that level of...
Yes, for that, but more on a sort of wider thing that, for example, the Bundestag for years has had three main parties or blocks. There's 7 now, including AFD. The French Socialist Party is down on about 10%, whereas it used to, bestride the country like a colossus. I don't think we're going to go back to those days. I think politics is splintered.
I think that, because of things like immigration, because not especially the left, and the kind of Tony Blair centrist argument was they never really dealt with the problems that were really pressing on people and were worrying people. And maybe, if parties can start to embrace some of the problems which are pushing people to the right, then we can pull things back. But I don't really like to think that these parties are going to have, we're not descending into a new dark ages.
No, we're actually still heading up into the sunny uplit lands of science and progress. Can we do last week's podcast this week, please?
Yeah,
thank you.
I've already done a bit of it.
Indeed. I said last week that the explosions from the Tambora volcano in 1815 were heard up to 400 miles away. So I looked it up. They were heard more than 1,000 miles away. Yeah, that was one big volcano. Darkness by Lord Byron, the poem you drew my attention to, which I've now found in the book I'm reading about Tambora, was written in July 1816. But the point being that in that month the figure was 4 degrees lower than usual, the temperature. It rained on 19 days. With a north wind. The mountains, because it was up in Geneva, were capped in snow and the sky was dark grey. So
that was the year after.
That was the year after the explosion
Yeah.
in near Indonesia, which had this amazing effect for the year without a summer. So it's no surprise that he wrote. Are you sitting comfortably, David?
Oh yeah, sorry,
I had a dream, which was not all a dream. The bright sun was extinguished, and the stars did wander darkling in the eternal space. He said we were chilled into a selfish prayer for light. This is all about the playoffs, I think. I mean, it's the clouds perished. Darkness had no need. Apparently, some people in Italy thought the sun was never going to come back out. And lots of people thought, this is it. It's the end of days. Which is, so thank you for drawing my attention to that poem.
But it just shows you how one thing on one side of the globe can influence an artist on the other side of the globe, and his vision and his sort of aesthetic becomes like a driving force of, like, Western civilization for a period.
On abbreviation, I will see your... What did you come up with?
ABBR.
ABBR, and I will advance you ABBREV, a brev. But you can also have ABV, which is the obvious one, isn't it, for abbreviation. I suggested that zero was invented by the Arabs, but it didn't. According to the book, well, it's kind of. According to the book, The Crest of the Peacock, Non-European Roots of Maths, by Dr. George Joseph, the concept of zero first appeared in India around AD 458, so 2,500 years ago. The Sanskrit word for zero, sunya, meant void or empty. So it wasn't an actual zero in maths. It was a word that sunya meant empty or nothing sort of thing. But it was then taken up by the Arabs as a mathematical use and spread around the world by the Arabs. In our film section, you said that De Niro's appearance in the Warburton's bread ad was his best performance since Analyze That, which was in 2002.
Okay,
well, I put it
find some better films.
Yes, 2016, Dirty Grandpa.
Oh, I know, no.
Which,
I think he did.
What the hell was he thinking?
I know he's gone off the track. He did The Good Shepherd. At
yes,
one
The
point.
Good Shepherd. That was 2014. But I looked at this list of films he's done since Analyze That, and it's rubbish.
Yeah, he thinks he can do comedy, and I don't think he can.
I think he can do comedy. We're No Angels with Madonna's ex-husband Sean Penn. I mean, they were both mugging it up and chewing up the scenery, but it's terrific. We're No Angels.
That's good. No. I like Robert De Niro smacking people around.
All right. Hang on. What about the one where he has to take somebody across the country? Midnight Run? Was that him?
Yeah, that was before. That was in 97.
Yeah, but that was comedy. He could do that.
It was decent. Yeah.
Analyze This and Analyze That were good films.
They were. Yeah, they were.
Meet the Fockers.
No.
What?
This is a family podcast.
Was that? Hang on. No. Was that the first? Meet the
Fuckers.
Meet the Parents. Wasn't Meet the...
Oh, sorry, yeah, Meet the Parents.
Meet the Parents was the first, and I thought that was good. He was the sort of ex-CIA agent.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah. But yeah, the two follow-ups, not so much.
Were there two? I didn't know there were two.
I think so. Yeah, Meet the... No, whatever. Anyway.
He's doing the new Scorsese movie, which should be good.
I'm coming. Yes, I'm coming to that. Piers Morgan had a right go at him for doing this Warburton's bread ad. He says,
Did he?
Yeah. I don't know how much dough rolled in for you, Bobby, but seriously, really, one of the greatest actors of my lifetime is reduced to making bread commercials in a spoof. I thought it was a great ad.
It's a great ad. Yeah. It's great. American actors have got a history of doing like dodgy adverts abroad, though. I mean, they used to famously do them in Japan, didn't they?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Stallone,
well, Madness.
Some weird...
I know Madness isn't a great American actor, but Madness the Group went over and did an ad for Honda in Japan at the height of their... it's quite good, actually. They reprise that famous album cover when there's all 7 of them lined up.
Like...
But they're saying Honda. It wasn't their finest moment.
Turbo, CD, Turbo. Driving in a car, city. It takes us near, it takes us far.
You're right about De Niro. He's returning to Mobsters. Scorsese's The Irishman.
Pesci's coming back in.
Yeah, which will be out on Netflix, and that's based on a true story, which is actually the subject of this week's facts. Are you ready?
Yeah, go on.
Which this week are about
Terminator 2.
Yeah, that'll do.
Was it?
It's about.
That sounded like the Terminator.
Apparently, it's a non-copyrighted sound effect of Inception foghorn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, this week's facts are about Goodfellas, just because.
Oh, great film.
Yeah, because we like film so much. Because De Niro was in the bread advert. Did you know, and you probably did, that Goodfellas was based on a true story?
Yeah. I can't remember. He died recently.
That's right.
What was his name?
I'll come to that. Did you know that Tom Cruise and Madonna were first choices for the roles of Henry Hill and his husband?
No.
No, really?
And his husband. Wow. The book must have been very different to the film.
Can I rephrase that? Did you know that Tom Cruise and Madonna were first choices for the roles of Henry Hill and his wife?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, because that would have to be the remake in the sort of modern world. But no, it was definitely his wife.
It was Henry Hill's book, wasn't it? It was actually Henry Hill who wrote the book.
Hill's story was the main character in the book Wise Guy, on which the film is based.
By
some American writer that wrote a book about Henry Hill, the gangster, called Wise Guy.
I'm going to have to now look up now.
After the film, Henry Hill released a cookbook.
Oh,
yeah,
the real Henry
Hill.
The
real Henry Hill, who by that time was out of his FBI witness protection program, because it was such a popular film. So he released a cookbook, as you do when you're a tired mobster.
Ah, yes. It was Nicholas Pileggi.
Thank you.
Pileggi.
Wrote the book Wise Guy, based on his life.
Well, it was about Henry Hill's. Yeah, that's right.
Henry Hill died in 2012. Do you remember the scene in Goodfellas where Paul Sorvino suddenly slaps Ray Liotta across the face? If you saw it, you'd remember it. But
I do. I think I do remember.
It was improvised, and when you know that and you watch it, you can see Ray Liotta's face. You're like, oh, I didn't know you were going to do that. It's great. Do excuse me. Al Pacino turned down the role of Jimmy.
Really?
Yep. He at the time he was worried about being typecast just as a wise guy all the time, and he said no, don't want it.
Yeah, silly. It's like Harrison Ford did the same.
Yeah.
That's why he started to make those ridiculous movies like. Anyway, yeah.
Well, Star Wars. All right, yeah.
No.
Did you know? What do you regard as the key scene in Goodfellas?
Everybody picks the drug scene, don't they? You know, the one where he's on cocaine and he's seeing the helicopters. He's paranoid.
Oh, okay. I would have chosen the funny how. What do you mean I'm funny?
Oh, the funny how. Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, because I've seen that in real life, where some pretty tough guy and everyone's having a laugh will just suddenly turn on somebody, and just reduce the atmosphere to a chill in a second. I've actually seen it done, and it is scary. And it's Pesci is telling a story, all the wise guys are laughing, and he suddenly turns on Ray Liotta and he says, "What do you mean I'm funny? What do you mean?" Well, apparently Joe Pesci wrote that scene.
Did he?
Himself, because he'd seen something like this with proper wise guys, and he relayed the story to Scorsese, and Scorsese said, "Oh, great, okay, just write the whole scene." And
it's funny how often that happens, because the in Blade Runner, I think it was Rutger Hauer who kind of wrote or edited the great speech at the end of Blade Runner.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack
That's the one.
Ships on fire off that one.
I think in Jaws it was Robert Shaw who wrote the famous one about the ship delivering the nuclear bomb. Do you know the one where they're sitting in the boat and they're talking about this really... He said, "How did you get that tattoo?" And then it goes into this whole story about
it's
delivering the bomb.
It's funny that because they can be the most natural acting bits, when you improvise.
Yeah, well, I don't think he improvised. I think he just wrote it that day. But
right.
he wrote the whole bit about he had a doll's eyes, whatever, the great lines. So, yeah, it's weird how often it's the actors who write some of the great scenes.
Also, lots of bits in Goodfellas were improvised, including the bit where Joe Pesci shoots some poor young kid who's just insulted him. All that dialogue. From the moment the guy insults Pesci is then De Niro and Pesci and Liotta just improvising everything that then happens, other than the actual shooting. Anyway, the last one, 20 cast members from Goodfellas went on to play characters in The Sopranos.
That's believable.
Yeah,
very believable.
Okay, we've gone way over. No, we haven't. We've gone a wee bit over the hour, haven't we?
Have we? I don't know. Oh, I tell you what, I forgot to mention this. I did the sums. We have just gone past our 24th hour, so we have got a full solid days of podcast if somebody wanted to listen to them.
It's more like a sort of extended nightmare for many of us. Thank you very much, David.
It's a tough one this week. We've covered a lot.
Yeah, I thought I don't know. I was meandering and not making very much sense on the politics of Mrs. May. So forgive me for that. Although I can share with you an extra fact. Do you know why people say Mayday, Mayday?
No.
I'm glad you asked.
Sorry. Go ahead. I was trying to think why, but no, I don't think I do.
1923, a chap called Frederick Mockford was an early air traffic controller at Croydon Airfield, and he was asked to come up with an emergency word, sort of an unsafe word. And at the time, most of the traffic that he was dealing with was going between Croydon and Le Bourget, which is an airfield, smaller airfield near Paris. And he came up with M'aider, which is French ma aider, me aid, help me.
Oh.
So it's M'aider. Yeah, I mean, more. It's classically it would be aidez-moi, help me, but. Yeah, M'aider.
It means something in French.
Well, Mayday doesn't, but that is the origin of it. And then in 1927, it was taken up as the global distress call, not just for planes. It's a distress call for ships as well. So I thought you'd be interested in that.
No, I was glad to have our extra fact this week.
And I shall leave you with Harry Melvin and the Blue Notes message to. Our soon-to-be-departed Prime Minister. Goodbye.
Just hung up the telephone. I've heard all about you. Your new boyfriend couldn't wait to tell me that you and I are through. Don't try to spare my feelings, just get up and let me cry. Get up and let me cry.
The end is in sight.
The colourful phrase used by a charismatic figure.
This is the Trump shutdown.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless the nations of the world.